Hello and welcome to another edition of Issues with JIDE. Here we'll talk about actions and inactions of those who shape our national and political landscape and how these impact us positively or otherwise. I'm Ibrahim Shita. Today on the show, Babangida accept there have been reactions concerning Babangida's the book that he has written, where people are reacting, and basically that's what we'll be talking about today. Babangida under fire for June 12 book that he has written on Abiola. Now, it's important to mention that we can only read comments that with human names and ones based on the subject matter. Because of the program, we take your questions, but first, subscribe to our YouTube channel and drop your questions in the comment section. I have joining me via Zoom, the master himself, Babangida. Thanks for joining us, Bikil.
Thanks, Brian, for doing this with me. Again, this week, I say a big thank you to our esteemed viewers for always being there for us.
Right. So let's get right into the matter. In light of the recent revelations from General Ibrahim Babangida's autobiography, where he acknowledges that Chief M.K. Abiola won the annulled June 12 in 1993. So by annulling the election that was deemed free and fair, did you think Babangida's administration undermined the democratic aspirations of Nigerians? How do you see it?
They not only undermined Nigeria's desire for democracy, they also undermined the unity of our country. I was in Kano when that annulment took place. I covered the election. I saw the people of Kano reject their own son. Remember, there were just two political parties at that time, the Social Democratic Party and the NRC. Bashir Tofa, a Kano man of Kanuri extraction, was the candidate of the NRC. The two parties that the military midwifed, the Babangida-led military administration, formed political parties, built party secretariats for the two parties in the various local governments across the country. They enriched people who are close to them. They gave them contracts to build these party secretariats at local government level for the two parties that they created. They didn't give the politicians the chance to form their own parties. They formed those parties and told the politicians to go and join those two parties. So you had the SDP, which looked like the less conservative of the two political parties, and of course the NRC. So we had a good number of people with radical backgrounds joining the SDP. People like Abacha, who had been a Marxist all along. People like Sule Lamido, who was a big disciple of Abacha. You know, the radical elements were largely in the SDP, and the unpretended conservatives, they were in the NRC at that time. Bashir Tofa, as presidential candidate of the NRC, was roundly rejected in his state. I covered the election in the polling unit located in front of Bashir Tofa's house at Gandu Albasa in the Zoo Road area of Kano. And I waited until the results were tallied and announced. and he lost the election where he voted. That's a presidential candidate losing an election at his polling unit in his hometown. I've never seen anything like that in all my years as a journalist. So that election, if it had been allowed and the entire electoral process allowed to come to an end without hiccups, results announced, definitely it will have helped us to cement the unity of our country. A country that was already politically fractured, ethnically fractured, religiously fractured, spoke with one voice on June 12, 1993, and a group of irresponsible soldiers decided to annul the election. They first stopped the electoral body from continuing the process of collating results. So on June 23rd, 1993, the process was aborted and the crisis began. We knew, the news magazine where I worked, we had already predicted that the election would be annulled. We called the cover story back then, which I contributed to, was captioned "Desperate Moves." And we spoke, we wrote about how they were desperate, some moves that were being made, because we have sources in the military who are very strong in terms of sources in government. We were so strong at that time that a speech written by the president, we could tell who wrote the speech. We were that strong. We had a bunch of very talented journalists, some of the best journalists this country has ever seen. I remember even when President Clinton came to Nigeria, he praised one of my colleagues, Akin Adesokun. Akin Adesokun was one of our reporters at that time. And we saw people like Ebenezer Obadare going to the London School of Economics and Journalism, setting a record in terms of the thesis that I wrote. We had such a fantastic crop of brilliant journalists recruited by Dapo Olounyomi of Premium Times and chaperoned, led by Bayo Onanuga, whom I always describe as the most talented Nigerian editor that I've ever seen. So we detailed the plans that they were making to cancel the election. IBB has he amazed me by trying to make people see him as blameless in the whole saga. But IBB, by the nature of his whimsical and endless transition program, exposed himself as somebody who did not want to leave power. We cannot argue that Abacha was also desperate for power. But what happened, the story that IBB refused to tell Nigerians is Abacha wanted power as much as IBB wanted it. And IBB admitted in his book that Abacha risked his life to help him take power. That's to help IBB take power in 1985. He also admitted that that Abacha saved his life at some point. That was in 1990 when Gideon Oka carried out a bloody coup in which Babangida's ADC was killed and some officers too lost their lives. It was Abacha that took control of the situation, that sent soldiers to go and take the head of state out of the state house, the Dam barracks at that time here in Lagos. So Abacha stood up for him to be counted. Abacha helped save his life. I will be the last person to praise Abacha, but we also have to be fair to the death. I do not believe that it was not deliberate to keep Abacha in power. I believe that it was known to IBB that Abacha too wanted to be a military president. And he felt that at some point IBB had to go to allow him to also have a shot at the number one position of the country. So why would IBB leave Abacha in power? You knew that the interim national government headed by Ernest Shonekon was in danger by leaving Abacha, who also wanted to taste power, in office. Abacha before this time was already being called Khalifa. Khalifa means successor within the military. So if you knew he was being called successor, if you knew that he wanted power desperately, why didn't you retire him at the time you retired other people? You retire service chiefs. You retire service chief. You retire the chief, the Inspector General of Police, Aliu Atta. In any case, the then Chief of Army Staff, Salu Ibrahim, the Okene man, was of the view that in the interests of the integrity of the police, of the army had to leave power because you had promised that you were leaving, that you were going back to your barracks. It was this same sit-tight syndrome that cost Gawan, the head of state of the country. He was removed. One of the reasons Muritala gave for removing him was the fact that he didn't want to leave office. He had been in power since 1967, and they had to send him packing by 1975. So why should you send service chiefs packing? You then left the Minister of Defense, whom you knew was hungry for power. Okay, you also said you knew that you discovered that he had so much hatred for Abiola. So if he had so much hatred for Abiola, and Abiola had won an election, why didn't you just get Abacha out of the way? So two things could be responsible for this: cowardice on the part of General Buhari, General Babangida. He was not going to take the risk of having Abacha overthrow him and take power from him. So he had to do the bidding of Abacha's loyalists in the army, forces loyal to Abacha, who, according to him, if he had removed Abacha, if he had retired Abacha the way he retired the service chiefs, there could have been bloodshed, according to him, in the military.
Absolutely.
Well, this looks like an hypothetical position. No one can tell whether it could have led to bloodshed because you had retired others, even his juniors. Why didn't you just take that decision, knowing that this person was the threat? Now is not in position to defend himself. You are now speaking ill of the dead. IBB was also, when he was talking about the Vasa coup, the Vasa coup is generally seen as a coup that didn't exist. I remember interviewing the former chairman, Joint Chiefs of Staff at Ikoyi Golf Club, and he told me he was the most senior military officer then, and he told me that the evidence that was used to sentence Vatsa to death was a very weak one. And he said he didn't know why there was so much hatred between Babangida and Vatsa, to the point that Babangida had to kill Vatsa, despite pressure from Soyinka and other writers, because Vatsa was a good poet at that time. So he was a member of the Association of Nigerian Authors. So Nigerian authors went to see the chairman, Joint Chiefs of Staff, and he told them that, oh, those men were executed a while ago, which means their visit to him to try to persuade him not to take the life of one of their members was late. Now, Vatsa is not in position to defend himself. All of the major characters, most of the major characters in the 1993 election annulment, the ones who are of IBB's age, are no more.
All right.
And his juniors will find it difficult to openly criticize him and try to destroy some of the claims that he made in that book. IBB is long gone. Look at the comment of as IBB is long gone, Abacha is long gone. He's not in position to defend himself. What I know that is not new to me is, yes, there was pressure. The military wanted to hang on to power, especially military officers of northern extraction. They wanted to hang on to power. But as the head of state and a military president at that time, IBB should have told them, gentlemen, in the military, our word is bond. This is the time for us to leave office. This election has been free and fair. The Nigerian people have spoken, and the character of that election transcended ethnic and religious boundaries. Let us go back to our barracks so that civilians can take over. He didn't do that. He boasted on TV that we are not only in government, we are in power. He said that in the aftermath of the June 12th annulment. And on many occasions, he had the opportunity before now to apologize to Nigerians and to tell Nigerians that he was sorry and I regretted his action, but he refused. Whenever they interviewed him, he would say that he had no regrets, that he did the right thing. He didn't tell people that these were the reasons behind his decision at that time.
Right.
So why so late in the day? Why so late in the day? You are now giving reasons and trying to make Nigerians see you as a non-looker in the whole thing, whereas you are deeply involved. You are not a non-looker.
All right, because speaking about apology, recent calls such as that one from the Bola Tinubu Support Organization urged Babangida to issue a formal public apology to address the lingering wounds from the annulment. How essential is a formal apology from Babangida in facilitating national healing? And what impact could it have on Nigeria's collective memory of June 12th?
I think that he has every reason to apologize to Nigerians. He's claimed that we had to be careful with Abacha. Abacha was plotting to remove him from power and all that. Nobody is impressed by all that. You took a decision that had terrible repercussions, terrible and far-reaching ramifications. Some of us lost people close to us in the aftermath of the June 12th election. Babangida Kalto, whom the press center in Alausa, in Ikeja, or Alausa as it is properly pronounced, in Ikeja, was named after. We were colleagues. We were both in the Northern Bureau for the news magazine. We were always working together. He did not like writing long magazine-style stories because he was originally a correspondent with Punch newspapers. He would dictate to me, and I would turn his gist to lengthy cover stories. But suddenly, he disappeared. It was the same way they were looking for me. The story that I wrote eventually sent my editor to jail. I was moving from state to state. Today, I will be in Plateau State. After 3 weeks, I'll run away from Plateau. I'll go to Borno State. They had to give me a fresh ID card just to ensure that the military did not catch me and put me on trial for coup plotting in 1995. But my editor was eventually picked up, Kunle Ajibade, and sent to jail at the time. Obasanjo was sent to jail. All of this happened in the aftermath of the June 12 election, the annulment. People lost their lives. In Lagos here, there was a slaughter because Abacha wanted to go to the airport and people were protesting. And he insisted that they should not take him through the Third Mainland Bridge, that they should take him through Ikorodu Road. He said he wanted to know who was the commander-in-chief. And people were protesting. A lot of those young people who were protesting were mauled down by the military. They fired them, killed a good number of them. Many lives were lost. So if by a decision that you took, people lost their lives, a lot of dislocation in our national life took place, why should you wait to be told to apologize? Nobody needed to tell him he should just have apologized. These stories, people are not impressed by these stories. We live in a country where Nigerians don't even know, because of the short memory of our people. Nigerians don't even know who their heroes are. The winner of the election was tortured, imprisoned, and killed for journeying to challenge the annulment. And there were other people who were killed with him. Politically motivated murders took place, sponsored by the military. And some officers in the military were hurriedly retired, all because of June 12. Dangiwa Umar, Colonel Dangiwa Umar, a prince from Kebbi State, who was seen as one of the IBB boys, openly supported the de-annulment of the election. For that reason, he lost his commission. He was retired abruptly. Some were lied against and eventually chased out of the military or killed. So IBB deserves to properly apologize to Nigerians, and to see people go to the book launch to go and donate as much as 17 billion naira. It shows clearly a failure of memory. It shows that as a people we suffer collective amnesia. So people who do not know who their true heroes are, who forget their heroes easily, how will they learn the lessons from the past? This is why I'm really, look, we must admit, yes, the military didn't want to leave power. But as the head of state, if you wanted to leave power, you will have done the right thing. Now he's saying he regretted not retiring Abacha, that it was a big mistake. But you knew all along that Abacha wanted power. You knew all along. Because Abacha felt that having helped you to seize power, his own time must come. Because Abacha was such a greedy general who had houses everywhere. He invested so much in hundreds of properties. He loved money like no man's business. And that's why you still see that even some of what he looted are still being repatriated to Nigerians today.
From his grave.
If not for his money, the money that he stole from us, we would not have finished the second Niger bridge. If not for the money that he stole from us, we would not have finished the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway because such monies are still being sent to Nigeria decades after Abacha kills the dust. But we would
Absolutely.
not have had the Abacha regime was one of the most wicked, most cruel in Nigerian history. But we would not have had Abacha. We would not have had the misfortune of an Abacha military presidency if IBB had not cowardly or deliberately left him in office. And that government forced Shonekan out of office. Shonekan resigned as ING chairman, but many of us knew that he was made to resign at gunpoint.
That's right.
We had the stories then, what transpired, how they put a gun to his neck and forced him to resign because he had just returned from the UN where he boasted that the Nigeria's path to democracy was an irreversible one. So how can you, after boasting that we were moving inexorably towards democracy, suddenly come and resign? We knew he was forced to resign
All
because
right, BK.
Abacha could no longer wait in the shadows. He was desperate to be
Right.
president as well.
Right. Because of our time, let me take some comments. Ipoga Imodu says, JIDE will always give you a personal historical account, bringing some clarity to the issue. Ogechi Evonwa says, IBB is economical with the truth in his book. He says, IBB's attempt at laundering his image at this point won't make much impact. History is there for all to see and judge for themselves. We appreciate the literature anyway. Adeleke says, Babangida owes Nigerians an unreserved apology. Olatunde Opoga says, okay, I can make that comment. Emmanuel Osi says, but President Tinubu wasn't arrested and detained, so why was Oshimbajo lying? Emmanuel Banji Okesoto says, JIDE was right. There was an unspoken understanding of one good turn deserves another between IBB and Abacha. And then from other platforms, we have Aisha Danjuma says, Babangida admitting that Abiola won is nothing new. We all knew the truth. What Nigerians want is accountability, not half-hearted confessions decades later. Chukwuemeka Okorie says, the annulment of June 12 is the original sin of Nigeria's democracy. If Babangida is truly remorseful, he should name the powerful forces that pressured him and tell the whole truth. And then last comment I'll be taking now is Sulaiman Abdullah. He says, I respect IBB, but he made a huge mistake with June 12. Nigeria is still suffering the consequences of that decision. History will not forget. My last question to you, BK, because of our time, is that the annulment is often cited as a significant setback for Nigeria's democratic development, as some of our commentators, our viewers online had actually stated. But what lessons do you think we can current and future Nigerian leaders learn from the June 12 annulment to strengthen democratic institutions and prevent similar crises in the future?
I think that first and foremost, we must do our best to ensure that the military doesn't take power again. That is the most important thing. Because what happened could not have happened if we were under civilian rule. And the military destroyed its reputation by its involvement in politics, by the corruption that happened during their time. Look at how much Abacha alone stole. Abacha alone probably stole in the region of $5 to $6 billion. So first and foremost, we must make sure that the military, for no reason, take power in Nigeria. They must never take power again. All those deluded young people who are calling for military rule because their choice of candidates didn't win the election, they do not know I can only say, Father, forgive them for they know not what they were doing. Those of us who witnessed military rule, we can't forget. So then the Independent National Electoral Commission should truly be independent. Even the manner in which the chairman of the electoral body is chosen must demonstrate independence. It must show independence so that the chairman of the electoral body, once he takes a decision, it is final, it is binding on anyone. Nothing should be able to stop the announcement of result of any election. We must remain committed to democracy because it's still the best form of government. We had a big setback in 1993, and it took us more than 6 years, or about 6 years, before we were able to bounce back, and we had civilian rule again. But people lost their lives, sacrifices were made. Some have not recovered. Some died in the process. So IBB, the blood of such people are on the neck of IBB or in the hands of IBB. He has to properly apologize to our people. In another country, we would have been arrested and put on trial. But that's not what we have here. They are even enriching him further, donating that much money to him after he subverted the will of the Nigerian people. He admitted that what they did amounted to subversion. You know, he admitted. But saying that the June 12 election, in page 275 of the book, he alluded that the annulment of the election was hatched and masterminded by forces led by Abacha. But who took the decision to annul? You took the decision to annul. Abacha didn't announce the decision. The buck stops at your desk. If you truly love our country and you are a true national hero, you could have decided that, look, whatever happens, let the will of the Nigerian people prevail. Today, history will have been fairer to him. IBB, in terms of infrastructure, is probably the greatest leader to come out of Nigeria, but nobody wants to talk about that. Third Mainland Bridge, he gave it to us. The first dual carriageway in northern Nigeria, the Abuja Kaduna Kano Highway, IBB gave it to us, but nobody will remember that until he goes into his grave. The annulment of the June 12 election will continue to haunt him. And he still has a chance to apologize properly, because writing a book, which in the process enriches you further, is not and making claims about the dead that the dead cannot defend, that the dead cannot defend themselves about, is not the way to go. You must apologize publicly that you regretted your actions. You must apologize. A national apology, proper apology, not in form of a book, is what Nigerians want to see. Those of us who lost loved ones, we cannot forget. It's just impossible to forget, because our country lost an opportunity to cement our unity as a people forever by the annulment of that election. And God's anger will be visited on those who set us back in terms of the unity of our country. They now employed all kinds of schemes to divide the North and the South in the aftermath of that election. What a shame.
That's right. Well, let me take this comment. We are out of time. Then we call it a wrap. Teju Tailulu Dipo says, BKO, please write a rejoinder to the history of June 12 for posterity's sake. Samson Tayo says, Babangida, they will come for you. Get prepared. Blessing peoples. Says Babangida should be in jail, but jail in Nigeria is not even trustworthy. Okay. Emmanuel Osi says, after all, the IBB did, but look at them, praising and celebrating him and even donating billions. Myun Ede says, medicine after death, he put the blame to Abacha because Abacha is no more. And Modara Rashid says, you're right, Babangida military regime is a disaster. Adetola Kaide said, Abacha not alive to defend himself. Oguneye says, it's a pity that Nigerians donated that huge amount for the killers of our hope and the hero of democracy. They gathered to celebrate the life and times of our common enemy. Well, different reactions, and these will definitely continue. And we also getting reactions from comments, rather, from people that have not been commenting for a long time, maybe new joiners, new viewers, or new commenters, let me just say. So let's keep the conversation going. We have a lot of people joining the live stream as the program is on. Well, but because of our time, BKO, that's our show for today's edition of Issues with JIDE. Special thanks to you, Babangida Cowardice, for those insightful analyses, as always.
Thank you, Ibrahim. Thank you to our wonderful viewers. God bless you. God bless you. We're always there for you. And we'll do this again next week.
Amen. And thanks to our audience for keeping our company on every edition. You can see the program again anytime by subscribing to our YouTube channel, TVC News Nigeria. Click on the subscribe button to get the latest information. You can also follow us on our social media platforms at TVC News NG, also at Ibrahim_Shita across all social media platforms. On behalf of the rest of the team, I'm Ibrahim Shita. See you again next edition. Bye for now.